and every one should be for every day. So thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to come together in your name. Pray that you will give us the wisdom, courage, and patience to do our duty to the best of our abilities. Pray also that you will continue to look after each and every one of our families and keep us safe and healthy, not just during this holiday weekend, but every day. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, one of our utility rate advisory board members has not shown up yet, so where do we go from here?
Well, you want to just start some of the other business,
We can do that.
and maybe move that down the line?
We can go.
Well, we kind of go in order. Actually, the first thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes. So if you've all had a chance to look at those minutes, I'll entertain the motion.
Motion to move the, motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion made by Steve.
I'll second it.
Second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Need a roll call for that, Tom, or
Yep.
not?
Yep.
Since it's all.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Farren.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Next is the claims. If you had a chance to look at the claims, if you have, or you have questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Tim,
Second.
second by Jose. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Farren.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Okay, the first thing we had on the agenda was to actually approve the calendar days. I think you've got a copy now in your board pack as far as the days. I don't think anything's changed as of time. It's the same as we did last year.
No, the calendar is pretty much the same. There's some of the dates, dates have changed.
Right,
But,
as far as the number of
one thing I
days.
did want to, it also includes the holidays. And what I wanted to ask is if we could use the flex holiday and create a personal day, because the flex holiday causes us have to manually track that. It is the same, if we made it a personal day, it would track automatically.
So that would replace the flex employee holiday with just a personal
Yes,
day?
it would just be, basically the same thing anyway.
Right.
Is that in our salary, are personal days in our salary ordinance?
Yes, we would have to amend the salary,
Yeah.
this would have to amend the salary
Okay.
ordinance.
We would have to at some-
It's in the salary ordinance as reference to the handbook.
Okay, so you'd amend the handbook and just on personal days, PTO?
Yeah.
So any discussion on that, or?
I mean, I don't, it's up to you, but
I don't have no issue.
that would help us from having to manually track when somebody takes a flex.
So right now, do each city employee have one flex holiday?
Yeah, and they have 2 personal days. Now, then they would have 3 personal days.
Without a flex holiday.
I mean,
And they wouldn't have a flex holiday. It's basically the same thing. It's just it automates
yes,
the tracking of it.
right.
I don't care what we call it, you know
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm
the
saying?
same thing.
It's the same thing, yeah. I'll entertain a motion if somebody wants to do that.
Is there something we need to do?
Change to change from flex to personal.
Place to personal, right.
Yeah, so that'd be the first motion. The next motion would be to amend the handbook to provide for that. The additional paid time off day, PTO day.
So I'll make a motion to change from the flex day to an additional PTO day.
Personal day.
There you go.
Motion made.
I'll second it.
Second by Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
We need a roll call for that too?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Farren.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Then a motion to amend the handbook, the personnel handbook, to increase the number of paid time off days or personal days by adding an additional one.
Yeah, we're changing, and then dropping the flex holiday.
On the policy.
Yes.
Okay. I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Tim,
Second.
second by Steve, all in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays. And thank you. That makes it one less manual.
I'm sorry,
process.
did you approve the calendar?
No,
Okay.
the calendar needs, the calendar and the holidays will still need to be approved.
Right. So we approved the change of what the holidays, but now we just need to approve the actual calendar.
Are these two separate motions, or this is
I think
a
it-
combination?
I think you could, since the calendar includes all the holidays, I think you could do it in one motion, approve
Right.
the calendar
Okay.
with the holidays.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 city calendar.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
I think you all have on your board pack too that the board appointments, the council needs to appoint 2 members of the board for next year. I think it's listed in there as 2. Tom, do you have that?
Yeah, I did. I left them in there. That was Nick Stevens and Jamie Rashi. I contacted them. They said they would,
Hello?
were willing to serve again if you think it's what you want to do.
Yes, and this is the mayor. We had a meeting this evening.
But we need to get them going because
Okay.
they have to get a bond before the first of the year.
Okay, so you will not be able to get here?
Okay, and this is the,
Well, this would be the
City
redevelopment-
Council.
Two members of the
Before
redevelopment commission.
that,
The
so.
councils and then the mayor has 3 appointments to the redevelopment.
okay.
I see no reason not to appoint them.
No, they're both subs, they're both
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'll reappoint
I
them.
agree too.
reappointed. them back.
So I'll make a motion to reappoint Nick Stevens and Jamie Rashi.
What I do is just proceed with
I'll
the
second.
introduction tonight. You tell the board,
Cool.
an introduction, and then you just have to have another
We'll get there.
advisory board meeting. You might want to excuse these guys. But they may want to stay for this presentation.
All right, the third person that should be here for the utility rate that got stuck in Vincennes, she's not going to be able to get here this evening, so
Okay.
all we can do actually is introduce. If you all want to stick around for that Buzz presentation, you're welcome to do that. I certainly apologize for.
Yeah, unfortunately, the
unfortunately.
utility rate advisory board will have to meet again, but you may want to stick around for this presentation that Buzz is going to make. We all know Buzz isn't long-winded, so it shouldn't take
It
long.
won't take long. We have a motion and a second on the floor for council appointments to the Huntingburg Redevelopment Commission. So we need a vote on that, I guess. I think that's on you.
Oh, it's on me?
You're asking for a vote?
Oh, okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call vote?
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Okay, let's turn over to Buzz.
He's ready
Yeah,
to go.
just by way of introduction, so you all recall that there's, the water department is considering a rate increase. It was actually motivated by the fact that Patoka Regional Water and Sewer District is increasing our rates. And so Buzz Crone was hired to take a look at how that's going to affect our rate tracker. And at the same time, while looking at it, he determined it would be advisable to also just look at our rates in general to recover some of the costs that we've incurred as a result of inflation and just the passage of time. And so, as you may know and recall, the process for amending rates in the city of Huntingburg is the rate accountant presents a report to the Rate Utility Advisory Board and to the Utility Board and makes a recommendation. And those two boards then make their recommendation based upon the accounting study. The council then introduces an ordinance to amend the rate ordinance. Notice is then published of a public hearing for that rate ordinance. And notice is actually sent to all water users outside the city limits concerning that public hearing. That public hearing would be at a later meeting sometime in December. So Mr. Crone is here tonight to present his water rate report. If he's still here.
Thanks, Phil. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
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 Okay, great. Hey, I really appreciate you accommodating my schedule and being able to participate via Zoom, and also to thank Jerry and Rob for getting everything all set up before the meeting here with us. But I've got a few slides, and Phil did a very eloquent job of introducing the topic tonight. And what we've kind of got two pieces to this puzzle. One is Patoka is going to start looking at their rates every couple of years. Whenever they raise their wholesale rate to us, we take advantage of a procedure that's patterned after the IURC's procedure for water cost adjustment tracking factors, similar to what the electric and gas utilities do with their energy cost adjustment tracking factors on either monthly in the case of the gas and quarterly in the case of the electric utility. So the Patoka rate increase is going to increase our wholesale purchases by about 39 cents per 1,000 gallons. And when you translate that, spread that, we buy about 40% of our water resources from Patoka and are producing just under 60% in-house now. So that is, now that we've had the new treatment plant up and running for a year and a half or almost 2 years, I'm going to shift gears. This is a copy of the project that was under study. I think we used 2018 was our base year for this, and the rates were adopted at the end of 19. But we funded an $8 million project that was primarily at the water treatment plant, almost $5 million. A number of distribution system improvements and upgrades, upsizing, addition of a solar field, and as I was going through my notes here just before, I looked, it looks like our purchase power costs are down about $40,000 a year, comparing 20 to 21. So the solar thing, you know, that's a 10 or 11 year payback. So that was evidently a good decision there. So at any rate, the $8 million project now completed probably almost 2 years ago. We did a wraparound financing around some old bond issues. I think we made our first principal payment in July, is that right, Tom? On the new bonds, the SRF bonds. And back in 2019, again, we used 2018 was our base year. So really our numbers are probably 4 years old when you consider the baseline information. We had a projected target revenue requirement of $3.4 million. And that would have left us about $400,000 for what we call our depreciation or capital improvement allowances, okay? So that's the number I want to focus on. And when we look back, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, our target was to fully fund our depreciation, and that's at about a rate of around a little over $400,000 a year. This shows how the mechanics of the 39-cent increase from Patoka, we spread that over the total gallons of water that we produce, and it comes up to about just under $80,000 a year. And when we spread that over the annual cubic feet that we sell to our customers, it's an increment of 15 cents per 100 cubic feet. In addition to that increase, we already have an existing water tracker of about 35 cents per 100 cubic feet. So the first step in this to make us whole with Patoka would be another 15-cent increase in our variable retail rate blocks of 15 cents per 100 cubic feet. Getting back to the 400,000 now, we're actually producing, when we roll in this new increased cost of water and the tracking revenue that will come from that, we're at about $3.6 million. So if we did nothing, that 404,000 that we had assigned for depreciation, that's also a number we use for bond coverage, that depreciation allowance. That's the part of the numerator in calculating our bond coverage ratios, which is basically taking the depreciation allowance and dividing it by our debt service requirement, okay? But at any rate, we would only have about $188,000 left if we only did the tracker right now. To make us whole to back where we were, three or 4 years ago, when our target was to fully fund that depreciation of around 400,000. That's where we would like to consider this additional 6% across the board rate, in addition to the 15 cent per 100 cubic feet tracking factor. That would sort of make us whole here, because inflation, just like Patoka's had to raise its rates because of inflation in their operating costs, Huntingburg is not immune from that either. And, even though we saved 40 grand in power costs, just health insurance and employee benefit costs have gone up over twice that amount. So, combination of those things, plus just chemicals are costing more, everything's costing more right now. It's sort of the transportation issues we've had. So at any rate, this, if we want to get back to our target that we set when the original project budget was set, we need a little over $200,000 of additional annual revenue. That would take us from this 188,000 to a little over 400,000 of funds available for depreciation, bond coverage, working capital, that type of thing. So that's what the second piece of it is, the 6% across the board increase for our own, costs of inflation over the last 4 years. And when you think of what we've experienced just in the last year, I think the inflation rate was more than the 6% we're proposing here. And that these rates are basically, the numbers are about 4 years old. So how that works is in the monthly service charge, we just add the 6% to the usage, variable usage, the variable usage charges. First, we roll it, this 50 cents is really the pass-through from Patoka. So this is what, we would have to do anyway, is adding 15 cents to our existing 35-cent tracking factor. So what we want to propose in addition to that is this additional 6% rate adjustment. And then we would start clean, we'd zero out the tracking factor, start with a clean set of base rates at these levels. And that should produce that $400,000 depreciation allowance target that, has otherwise eroded over the last 4 years due to inflation primarily. So that's the second piece. The first piece is the 15 cents. I think that's something we have to do to maintain, those costs that we can't control. And the 6% additional is to restore our rates to produce the same target revenue requirements we had, 3 or 4 years ago when we came up with this plan. And the fire protection rates, I believe, they're the same inside or outside the city. There are no differences variances there, so we still are proposing 6% increase to those charges. And for, what that means, our base rate is going up a little less than $1 a month. And for the first, if you've got some customers that use less than 1,000 gallons a month, for 500 gallons a month, you're looking at a total increase of about $1.50. For 1,000 gallon, still sort of a minimum user, you're looking at about a $2 rate increase. And for an average user, which in your case is probably between 3,000 and 5,000 gallons, you're in the $4 to $6 range of what that all means. And again, a chunk of this is the increase from Patoka and then 6%. This would be the 6% increase on top of the Patoka increase. You've got the Patoka numbers already a little bit over here. So that would be the impact on typical users, and I think you all have copies of these slides. And as Bill and the mayor have already articulated, the rate advisory board and the utility board typically make the recommendation to the council, and we'll have to have a public hearing. I don't know if tonight, the fact that we don't have a quorum on the rate advisory board, we'll have to adjust the schedule on when the public hearing, but the Patoka rate increase won't take effect until the February billing cycle, which is January's usage. I think, even if we had to wait another meeting, I think we're still in good shape on meeting that schedule, implementation in February. I think that's all that I have, really. Open it up to any questions that you all might have. I'm going to stop sharing the screen unless there's a slide that you want me to refer back to. Let's see.
Any questions for Buzz?
Yeah, yes.
No, we're just asking if there's any questions for you, Buzz, so.
Oh, okay.
I have two questions, Buzz.
Yes,
I'm making sure, Steve, I'm making sure I understand.
Yeah.
The rate increase from Patoka takes effect in January, billed in
January
February.
usage, yes.
And billed in February.
Yes.
And our proposal here would be the same for the city. We would
Yes.
not be, the adjustment would not be made until, if we get everything, all these board meetings and approvals in, it would be made in January, billed in February, correct? We're
Correct.
following
That's
that trajectory.
That's the proposal, right?
And the average user in Huntingburg, question 2, if I read you right, is somewhere between $4.36 and $6.50, basically based on your sheet here.
Yeah, I mean.
Your average user.
Yeah. An average, 4,000 gallons a month is sort of the benchmark that the state uses when they dish out grant funds and so forth. And you're still going to be below their threshold for, getting grants through SRF, for instance. We've got a
Right.
different thing lined up with the wastewater. We're actually going through rural development, USDA on that one, but
I just want to know that that's Huntingburg's average user, not some
Correct.
formula from the state. Is that our average
I
user?
think your average resident is a little less than 4,000 gallons. At 4,600.
Even better, but I want to know that.
Right, it is less. I wouldn't have the numbers without talking to Debbie and billing, but
We had this discussion when we were talking about something else, but
I'll get that from Debbie before our next meeting. When we
that's
discuss
kind
it.
of key information for us to absolutely know that's real. It doesn't change the numbers, but I want to know what we're talking about.
Right.
The impact is, if you're combining both the
Yeah, the
tracker
15
increase and the 6%, and it comes out to basically $5. in a round figure.
Correct, yeah. Now,
Okay,
the 15-cent flow-through from Patoka is already in this, because it's
That's what I
really
thought.
sort of an approved, pre-approved rate that there's tracking factors. We don't, like for the, well, I guess they do approve them at the utility board meetings, don't they, when they change the
Yeah.
electric and gas tracking factors?
They're brought to the board, yeah, for approval.
Yeah. So I think the board could do that, the same with this water one, but because we would like the, also, since we have to go through this for the water anyway, it's timely to look at the overall rate situation so that when we do have increases, we keep them in single-digit range, you know, and not have to have, you know, 30–40% increases, which, you know, in the past, I don't think we maybe had that high of increases, but, you know, when we did the $8 million project, there were some.
I think we're clear on that, Bud. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
When was our last rate increase?
Last rate increase, was that effective 2019?
The last rate increase was approved in December of 2019,
Okay.
so it would have taken
Okay.
effect probably in February of 2020. The baseline study we used was the year-end 2018, and for this study,
And this is for the plant then.
We're producing
we
twice the
used
water, twice the
2021,
chemicals.
but we also took a look at,
I agree. But I mean, that rate study was in line with the plant project, this other project over here. Okay.
Would our usage from Patoka ever continue to drop, or are we contracted in on a certain?
We're contracted in.
yeah. And it's, you know, that's an excellent topic to just focus on. You have two sources of supply, which is worth a little extra money to be able to have that. And historically, there have been situations where we had to buy all the water from Patoka. Hopefully, we never have those kinds of things again, but having that redundant source of supply is a valuable asset to the city and the citizens, because if you do have a problem with one, just like when you were building the new treatment plant, you were buying higher volumes of water. Now we're at a point where we're producing the majority of our water resources, but there have been times we've had to buy it all.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Buzz, you work with other cities too, correct?
Yes.
How does our rate compare to the other cities? Just curiosity.
Yeah, well, you know, every community has their own, you're certainly competitive, I can tell you that, because you're still below the threshold to qualify for the grant programs through SRF. You have to have, you're still under that $55 a month. And it's all over the place, you know, big cities with huge customer densities have lower rates somewhat, like, but, you know, you're not out of line with Indiana American Water or Indianapolis Water.
Okay.
You're competitive, and you've got an enormous manufacturing facility that uses up a big chunk of that water.
Yeah.
And they pay for it too, but that's, you've had a very steady demand, and so you're competitive. I'm not gonna say, you know, if you compare to Jasper, it's a different situation.
Right.
They've got more capacity for their own production. Like, they used to sell wholesale, I don't know if they still do, but I can tell you, you know, over in Oakland City, you know, they're another Patoka customer. If you compare to some of those other neighboring communities, extremely competitive.
Thank you very much.
What is the cost of the water that we produce?
supply versus what we buy from Patoka? What's the difference in price?
We would have that.
Buzz, do you know that?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The difference in the cost for the water we produce versus the cost of the water we purchase from Patoka, is that?
Well, if you look at marginal cost, is a different, our marginal cost is a fraction of what it costs to buy from Patoka. But obviously to have the plant size the way it is, and, if you look at a standard costing model, we're still less than it would, we're bringing the total cost down below what it would be if we had to buy everything from Patoka. So, but there were times where we didn't have that ability, and like I say, there's a value to having a redundant source of supply, and but you produce it at a lower cost than what you pay Patoka for it.
It's a little bit difficult to compare to because we have two rates from Patoka. We have two connections. Is it two connections?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We pay a different rate for each connection. The earlier connection is a much lower rate than the later connection. Phase 5, they call it, is the later connection. And it's probably about.
They're narrowing that gap though, doing these increases now. They're doing them where they get the same, 39 cents per thousand. They're not giving different percent, If they applied that same percentage to the two different rates, that rate disparity stays the same, but it's starting to narrow, Phil.
Yeah. So, and I think what Buzz was pointing out, our marginal cost, if you just look at the cost of making water, the chemicals and the labor and whatnot, it's a lot lower than what we buy from Patoka. But if you factor in the plant and the debt service on the plant, it gets much closer, but we're still lower overall than our cost from Patoka.
Right.
Yeah. And we're beholden to this contract for 20 more
it's-
years?
it's
I don't know.
Something like
A
that.
long time.
Another-
Contracts, I think it's around 40 years. It was a 50-year contract.
But
that was signed.
there are times where having that second supply was really important, and more so than just when the drought hit back in the early 80s.
Yeah, there's several.
Going through the construction of a new plant, for instance.
It's extremely beneficial too for one of our largest customers to have this backup.
It gives them the surety that they can produce.
And they'll stay here and they'll employ people here because we've got that backup production of water.
So,
That's also possible for new business to expand.
Right.
As part of that too, so.
As businesses do expand and more people build homes and move to our area, is what we buy from Patoka a percentage of the total, or is it just a fixed amount?
It's a fixed amount. We have
Yeah, there's a minimum per day that we have to buy.
minimum gallons or minimum cubic feet or however you
daily,
measure.
yeah.
So as the city grows and usage grows.
We have to make up the difference from
We-
production.
Yeah,
We'll continue to have to pay for that. We pay a base price for so many gallons a day. And what we don't pay for, we don't get reimbursed for. That's why our water plant, we're not running it, we're only running it roughly, if you take the overall year, about 60% capacity. Once that contract's over, we can readjust that and be able to bring that down, not have to pay the cost of Patoka water.
So even if we produced 100% of the water, we still have to pay.
We still have to use
40% of
Patoka. We either use it or lose it, unfortunately. And what, Phil, you were talking about while ago, our phase 5 and phase 1, our phase 1 connection, both the connection charges are the same at $208.33. But our price per 1,000 gallons, our phase 1, they charge us $3.07, and our phase 5 is at $3.60 cost as
Okay.
per
So
1,000 gallons.
It's gotten a lot closer than when it started.
Right, it
The
has.
gap's narrow.
They've narrowed that gap over the
And
years.
with that, those are two different size connections is what causes that price gap.
Yeah. The other thing, aren't there two different expiration dates on those two contracts, or did we merge them all into one expiration date? I can't remember.
I believe they're all.
I have to double, yeah. I don't know when we've amended those contracts at different times. Whenever we reduced purchases, they usually take it off of the lower rate one.
Yeah.
But, there very well may be two expiration dates, I don't.
Yeah, I think we're at least into the 2030s before it expires, sometime in that time range.
Any other questions you all have?
I didn't want
Good
to choose
questions.
cabbage twice. We have the other one, but, I guess one question is, if we just do the rate increases and not cover the depreciation, we'll have a shortfall on money, and does anybody go to jail?
Well, we're kind of just, eventually that number will just keep eroding if we don't try to keep pace with inflation. And $400,000 a year for, it's really 200,000 the difference that we're talking about here. It would add up over time, and it just maybe instead of having money to make projects on a pay-as-you-go basis for, replacing pumps and different equipment, at the wells or treatment plant, that, you may have to borrow money if you don't have the funds on hand to do those things. But we should have, funding the depreciation is really a good move, I think, just being fiscally responsible to at least have that factored into your rate. It's one of the mandatory revenue requirements in the Indiana Code. It says the rates shall be sufficient, and then it lists, the cash operating expenses, working capital, debt payments, debt reserve requirements, depreciation. Pilot payments are optional, but it's not an option anymore. The city's general fund depends on those pilot payments from its utilities. So I think it's important to fund the depreciation. If you want to consider staggering the increases, we've done that in the past, but the sooner we get there, the better, in my opinion. It costs money every time you reprogram those computers.
Okay. Any other questions for Buzz?
I guess the next question, you had mentioned the solar that was put out there, and my assumption on that would be that $40,000 was reduction in energy, which is a reduction.
Yeah, I mean, it probably
Is
took
it
money
reduct-
away from the electric utility, but the electric utility's margin on that is really all you lose. You're not losing, and you're probably 30% of that 40,000, be about $10,000 or $12,000. That's probably the margin that you lost on the electric side. But
Okay.
yeah, it reduced the electric bill.
So that's a loss to the electric department, then that
Well,
12,000.
the loss is a fraction of the savings.
Yeah.
Because the IMPA loses the 30,000 for the power costs, and the electric utility really just loses the margin on that, that 10,000. Assuming, there was 10,000 of margin and 30,000 of power costs.
So does that also include energy sold back to IMPA, if there is any? I mean, you got water pumps. If those pumps are running, you may not have much, but there's energy going back, and then also any carbon credits generated, the cost of the money coming in from the sale of carbon credits.
We don't net meter, do
No.
I don't have that. Those are good questions. I may need to confer with John Rodepoler to see about that, but I don't know that you're making money by selling, or a significant amount
Oh, you won't make a whole bunch on carbon credits, but it is a, it is a revenue stream.
We're not net metering that anyway.
No, we're not net metering the water.
Can you?
I think you're still using more than you're producing there, but.
Um,
You don't.
That's
don't-
always
Still-
something.
I
you
I
don't
think
put
our
it-
ordinance is only set up for residential net metering. Is that right, John?
Yeah, that's right.
I guess we could, but
Paying it for
not sure.
ourselves.
I'm not sure it's gonna benefit the water and hurt the electric, so it's taken out of one pocket and put in the other, I guess.
And that's something you wanna know as Huntingburg grows to be touting a sustainable city, if you're using solar panels, the money you're making off of it, the selling of carbon credits, or the holding of carbon credits to do offsets, and the electric power unit out there and stuff like that, that always is good to
Maybe.
attract, younger folks around and build that
Maybe,
sustainable city.
maybe an easier question or a simpler formula would be the $40,000 savings. What do you think that decreased? How did, we're looking at a 6% increase. Were we looking at 7.5% if we factor out the 40 grand? Or?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, that having our own solar field has saved us
Yeah, it's-
some
it's-
level of rate increase here, a percentage
Yeah.
point or something, and that is
That's an excellent
you can
point.
calculate that, I assume.
Yeah, well, it would be probably about, let's see, 40,000.
It reduced our operating costs.
It should reduce our operating costs, and on the other side of things, if you don't,
It's about it's a little over 1%, because our revenue projection is 3.8 million. And so 40,000 would be a little bit more than 1%. So I think 7.25 to 7.5 probably would be if we didn't have that savings.
this
Excellent point.
depreciation, as I see it, it's sort of like a 40 years from now putting a roof on a commercial building. If you don't put that money aside now, then you gotta borrow some enormous amount of money to put this whatever roof on 40 years from now, because the cost, you're gonna need it down the road. It's the same thing we're doing here. We know we're gonna have pumps fail. We know we're gonna have to replace.
I mean, you guys hear every month how our distribution system is and how, we have.
It's a maintenance. You have to
Right.
maintain it, and if you don't, then it's big ticket items down the road.
If we
Yeah, you
start
got
falling
water
away-
tanks,
Water tank,
treatment
like-
equipment, distribution system, transmission mains.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
don't-
major, very capital intensive.
Right, and that's why you
what-
sort of have to have that funded, otherwise you fall behind and then you can't do that. Then it comes in big chunks later on, and then you have to talk about big increases or borrowing money, and I like to be allergic to borrowing money.
Understand.
So what percentage of our water infrastructure here has been updated? I know all the cities have
That was
issues with
100%.
infrastructure, and it's crumbling, and rates are just, they're gonna go up, and people, fixed income people will suffer, medium income people will suffer, and businesses.
There's been a progressive plan for 6 to 8 years.
Right.
As long as I've been on the council, there has been a plan of replacing, repair on the
We try to
utilities.
replace from 5 to 1,000 foot of water main a year, with the projects going at the water plant, the solar field, and the water main down Main Street. If you account the water main down Main Street, that covers us, but for the last 4 years, other than that water main that stretched from Chestnut and Main Street to 12th and Main, we've replaced 800 feet of water main in the last 4 years just due to costs on those projects, and try to save to do those projects. The water plant has been completely updated as of 2019. Even the old side of the filtration that we were running since 2003 has been all updated. With that said, the building was built in 2003, just everything inside the building has been updated. The water towers, we just had them inspected this past year. The inspections come back suggested for a a complete sandblasting and repainting of the inside and the outside of the water towers. You know, it's all that stuff. The water main, don't hold me to this, but I want to say we've got close to probably 28 to 30% of our distribution system updated as far as water mains goes. We've got a lot out there. We're getting ready to start in October 2024. We've already actively starting on it with our lead and copper program. IDM is making us remove all the lead service lines to meter pits for houses. The city has to absorb all that cost. To replace one lead service line, you're probably looking at material, putting the street back, and labor. You're probably looking close to, probably roughly $2,000 to $3,000. I mean, just material for a meter set for a house is around $1,500. That's what we charge for a new tap permit. We're not allowed to charge labor or putting the road back for that. The city consumes that cost. You know, we don't want to get too far away from our number here to where our infrastructure starts to crumble. We've got to make sure we keep our infrastructure so when you turn your tap on, you've got water at home.
I guess the point is you need the 400,000.
Right,
and
we
you're
do.
using-
In
and
order
you're
to
using the
continue to
400,000.
progressively improve our infrastructure, we need to stay there. Or like they said, we're gonna be borrowing money.
Yeah.
And when you borrow money, you're losing money. You're paying interest on that money. With our SRF loans, with our low interest rates, we have to stay within a certain range of that amount. Or I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Buzz, but if we get too far away from that, we don't qualify for those. Is that correct?
Well, you have minimum coverage requirements there,
Right.
and because the pilot payments and the residual equity transfers that we do every year, you know, we need to make sure that we don't get credit for that in those coverage calcs. It really boils down to that depreciation of notes, and you, just from an ongoing asset management plan standpoint, which I think right about the time you took the helm, I think that was in the works, preparing that asset management plan, and you need the funds to fund that. It's not excessive, and
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate it. Moving on, anybody else have anything else? So we have not, we need to move on.
I just want to compliment Glenn on his shirt. I like that. We're waiting for basketball season, aren't we?
That's right.
Well, will there be action taken tonight, or should?
I think what I would recommend doing is it seems a little redundant, but under the statute, the utility board has to make a recommendation to the council, and you are one and the same. But you would adopt, I think you have in your packet, a resolution that would recommend the approval of these rates to the council. The Utility Rate Advisory Board is simply a creation of our own ordinances. They would have to meet again at some point before final adoption to review these rates and make a recommendation to the council as well. That can be done next week or at another time. But my advice would be for the...
Does that have to be a public meeting, or can we do that?
It's a public meeting, yeah. So I would advise tonight the utility board adopt the resolution recommending to the council the rates. And then later, after that is done, the council can introduce the ordinance that would increase those rates and set it for a public hearing. So it's essentially 3 steps. Utility board adopt the resolution recommending the rates, and then the council introduce the ordinance for the new rates, and then set that for a public hearing at a later date, probably December 20th, or what is your schedule, Tom? What were you thinking?
Would be the first.
Could do the first meeting in
First
December, or
meeting
you could
in
do the
December.
second meeting in December. Yeah. December 9, is it? That sound right?
That's a
No, it's
December.
I think it is December.
December 13 would be the...
13 is the
Yeah.
second Tuesday.
Yeah.
13th and the 27th. I'd rather do it on I'd rather do it on the 13th, just.
Okay. And that would be the hearing date.
Correct.
Okay.
And between now and then, the Utility Rate Advisory Board would have to meet and make their recommendation.
So,
Will that be at 5:30, Phil, on the 13th?
That would be 5:30 on the 13th, yes.
so we would need a resolution number,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
2022-39. That would be the resolution for the utility board.
And I think you have that in your packet, do you not?
Yeah.
It just acknowledges your going over the utility rate, the utility accounting report with Mr. Crone, and finds that the rates he proposed are appropriate and recommends them to the council for adoption. And the
Yeah.
rates are attached to the resolution.
That's all it says. Motion to introduce, or
Actually,
motion to adopt, actually, the resolution.
That's correct.
So we all second?
Just the utility board, just the 5 utility board.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Right.
Who did that bounce?
Yes.
Roll call vote.
Fair and-
I instigated. I instigated.
Roll call vote.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
All
You don't have to meet the utility
5
board,
ayes,
they
no
meet
nays.
separately. They just have to meet in public.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Buzz. I appreciate the time and the effort you put into it.
All right, I'll follow up with you next week, Phil.
Okay, thank you, Buzz.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you guys for coming too,
Go-
so
go
obviously
Hoosiers.
we'll get back in touch with you.
Okay.
Take care.
You're welcome to leave or you're welcome to stay, whichever you prefer to do.
I'm
So,
probably gonna sign off unless you have another question for me.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
no, I
guys.
think we're good, Buzz.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So then you have a draft ordinance that I would request that you consider introducing tonight. It would be an ordinance that would establish the new schedule of rates and charges to become effective, and I've handwritten in based upon the report today, handwritten in to become effective for bills rendered on and after February 1, 2023.
I'll make a motion to introduce.
Motion to introduce by Tim.
What was the number? I'm sorry.
That would be 2022-40.
40. Okay.
For the ordinance.
For the ordinance, yes. So motion made by Tim,
I'll second it.
second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Okay.
So we set up the hearing for the next board meeting, correct?
Yeah, that would be a motion to set that ordinance for hearing at the December 13th.
Public meeting.
Yes.
Public hearing.
Motion made for public hearing on December 13th, 5:30 PM at the City Council chambers.
Motion made by Mr. McFerrin,
I'll second it.
second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
I believe it is.
All right.
Phew.
All right, April, now that you've been patient, lady, we'll skip a couple of these.
I
so
know
you can come
everything
in.
I want to know about the water.
Now,
Oh, there's more.
I don't want to know.
Buzz can tell you more.
I don't, and I'm not going to complain about the height.
There you go.
We, Dawn and I, would like to take this opportunity to update the council on the most recent NDOT compliance review and major event for the transit system. There was a compliance review meeting held here on November 8th. Councilmember Bounds and Treasurer Dipple and Mayor Swinghammer were in attendance for part of the review, They answered various questions from our project manager from the state of Indiana, Todd Jennings. Overall, it went well. One of the suggestions was that was made in our involvement with the Common Council and keeping them informed of what's happening within our department. You may be seeing us here more often. Plus, I will be more consistent with sharing important emails like the one I sent to you this past week about the low-rise minivan. There has been some discussion with Tom Dipple about the price increase of the low-rise minivan being mainly funded with capital funds from NDOT. You guys received that email and saw the difference was going to be $7,500 that will have to come out of local match. Our grant is already set for 2023, so that's how they calculated it. I wasn't sure how it would work. I apologize for any confusion. I wasn't sure if we would, this would be something that we would require approval from the council, but I definitely wanted to make sure that you were aware of the increase. Tom has calculated that our department does have $2,876 available. The remaining amount will come out of the remaining 2020 local funds at the end of the year. And he can kind of explain how that will work.
Well, part of it just, if there are funds left over, and there will be, it would be, and if you get it on order, it would be encumbered within the transit departments.
Okay, so it won't be an additional for 2023.
But the other funds that we did have other funds that were used when we sold the wrecked van. The last time it was $16,946.86. So that they're allowing us to use that as our local match.
Right, and then it will be close to like, we're thinking it's not, the exact price increase has not been determined yet. But what we have been told is that it will be in excess of $7,500 to the original base unit price of $61,000. So he thinks that we probably, if it's $7,500, it will need like $3,000. So it'll come out of the local fund that we have left at the
But
end
once
of
we know
22.
that number, we know that number before the end of the year, we can.
Right.
Just to cover it for next year, right?
Right, okay. Recently, I've assigned my administrative assistant, Don Giesler, to manage our preventative maintenance program. With that said, Don would like to discuss some changes to our preventative maintenance plan.
As you can see what she sent you, we received a notification from the RLS and the NDOT, and there were a few areas in our policy plan that need to be updated. So April's been working really hard we've been trying to figure out what we need to update, how we need to word it and everything. But on page 3, they wanted to have it where the managers and the drivers for our training we have to do and how often we have to have that training. And then, so we put that in there. And then the next one they wanted was on page 4, more detailed about the replacement versus the repair plan. So some of the replacement and the repair is like your fluid, your hoses, your belt, wipers, and the safety equipment, which we do have a daily sheet that they check off every day, some of the things they have to do, and then they'll notify me if there's anything they see, and then I get hold of either Jared or maintenance, or I'll get hold of the rushers or Sternberg, and so we do all that. And then there's more of a detailed description, which basically goes back to that too, where they do the daily, and then I've been watching mileage and everything, make sure every 3 to 6 months we have Jared go through everything that our people don't check when they do the daily inspection, so we can hopefully keep the major issue breaking down or anything. So we got that all fixed, so we just need to have the board adopt the new plan for 2022 maintenance plan.
It looks like the changes actually appear on pages 4 and 5.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
old pages 3 and 4, but new pages
Yeah,
4.
they
Yeah.
added 4 and
Yeah.
5, but I looked at theirs too, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it
Nope.
was at the end there.
Yeah, and then, the air filters and all that, yeah.
So we're just asking for the board adoption of the updated preventative maintenance plan.
Yeah. And then you gave them the,
Yeah, and then.
Any questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
No, they've got a quite detailed 24 pages.
Yeah, I know.
24 pages of maintenance
Yeah.
plan, that's quite impressive, actually.
She's got this, yeah. No.
Yeah,
Good job.
thank you, Dawn. You need a motion to just adopt the changes, motion made.
Motion made by
Thank you.
Steve,
thank you.
I'll second it.
second by Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call?
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bound.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Any questions?
It's a nice job.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Hand it down, Tom.
Okay, now let's get into the nitty gritty here.
Want to do the change order first?
Yeah, we can do that. But there's, back, when we did the parking lot in the, behind the city hall here, obviously it came in, we were using, ARPA funds for that. We had designated a certain number of dollars for that. I think it was 200-something thousand dollars. The actual bid came in at 148 something. But during that period of time, they found a problem they needed to get taken care of right away. I went ahead and authorized it, but it came into a difference of about $12,000. And so it's just a matter on council approval, we can go ahead and spend that for the ARPA funds, just because it was already
Those
established.
are, as I recall, those were substandard soils
Yes.
at the street entrance to the
Yes.
parking lot, and they had to be replaced, and that was a change order, unforeseen change order.
Right,
It is on the ARPA plan already as a higher price.
at a higher price, so it's all covered already, it's just I need permission that we can use that fund.
Basically, all right,
Approve the change order.
Approve the change.
all you're doing is change order. It looks like you deducted about $5,000, then
Right,
you,
yeah.
then the fix was 17 and 12, turned out about 12,000, so.
Right, exactly.
Motion made.
Motion made by Steve,
I'll second it.
second by Jeff, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call vote?
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bound.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Is what it is.
Chief Parks. Are you awake?
Yeah. I heard my name, man. Good evening. Mine's short and sweet. I just wanted permission to add another reserve officer to the department. It'd be Jeremy Lee. He's a retired Jasper Police Department, retired from the Jasper Police Department. I think he had over 28, 30 years, something like that in there. He's wanting to come on the reserve position to keep up with things, so I'd like to be able to go ahead and put him on. We've got 7 reserves and 3 auxiliaries, so it's 10 altogether. We're allowed to have 15, so we have room to put him on.
So we just need a motion to approve?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Tim.
I'll
Second
second
by
it.
Jose, who, Jeff?
I didn't hear Jose, yeah.
Jose would nod his head, but he.
Okay. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call?
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bound.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Thank you. It's nice to have an officer, retired officer, because they already know basically what they're doing. We don't have to train them in, so I appreciate it.
Hey, Art,
Right.
I didn't see on the agenda where we had the public hearing for the additional appropriation out of the police pension fund. It was set last meeting for this meeting,
Oh, okay.
so
So you open a public hearing on the additional appropriation for the police retirement fund. It's planned out on your agenda.
It's
It was advertised.
Oh, it was?
It was
Okay.
originally
That's fine, it
scheduled
was.
for one of the meetings that had to be canceled,
Okay.
and it had to be re-advertised.
So,
we just need to.
I'm here
open
for
it up
more.
For questions to the public.
okay, is there any questions from the public? Hearing none, I close the public hearing.
And then, yeah.
And now we can make.
So you have the ordinance, Tom, the additional appropriation ordinance?
Yes, I
It's
do.
already in the original number.
It was in last month's packet, but it was,
38.
it was 2022-37.
This is close. So you, motion in order for adoption.
Need a motion to adopt?
Make a motion to adopt.
Motion by Tim,
Second.
second by Jose, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call vote.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bound.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Farren.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Appropriation. Okay.
As a matter of conversation, does Jasper not have the same program?
They just got auxiliary.
They only have auxiliary, they don't
Yeah.
have a reserve officer program.
No, then the reserve program has a lot more to it. There's 3 different tiers you can go up to. You can actually get to the point where you can be in a car and go out and do the same things a police officer does. You don't get paid for it, but there's other levels where you can just stay down. You get of course, they have to get the same hours of training that a regular police officer does, which, they all know that going into it, so. And he's an instructor too, so I think he's wanting to keep his instructor's stuff up, so.
I work with him, I know all about him, I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
he's a good guy. He's a good guy. I'm glad to have him come aboard, so.
I haven't had conversation
He
with him
doesn't-
today.
He doesn't work for free, does he?
Not that I'm aware of. He doesn't work for me, he works for somebody else. Him and I work together, so.
Yeah,
I've known him for a long time.
I'm happy to have him, so.
Yeah, I was just curious why he came here. We're a city like no other.
That's right.
Yeah, there's not too many programs. Ferdinand's got a reserve program, but there's not too many programs out there, so. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
Evening, council.
Good evening.
Start off with the gas. We put one service in this month over at Brookstone over in the Ireland area. Got 4 applications on file. New housing is noticed it is slowing down some, so it might be a little slow this winter. And the crew's been replacing a 1-inch high pressure main out by the B&A LeClaire Skids area where a dozer took out the line, high pressure 1-inch. They were, I guess, making a parking lot and they didn't realize there was a gas main there, and they went down deeper than what they thought. Caught it, ripped it in 2. So we went out and shut it off. So we had to order a new 1-inch gas main, and then we relocated it while we were going to have to replace it. So that ended up being 400 feet long, steel. And like I said, we get 20-foot sections, so it's a lot of welding we had to do. But then we had to wait for some of the pipe to come in. But luckily, there was a warm spell during that period. But last week they did get it all welded up, pressure tested. Then we got the places back in heat last Monday, right before right when the cold snap started taking effect. So we got that all finished up.
Did that serve those buildings right there? Where was that, or who did
It's
that
just them
serve?
2 businesses,
Okay.
LeClaire Skids and B&A.
It's paid for by the contractor?
Yeah.
Reimbursed?
Yeah,
Yeah, I assume that wasn't Holy Moly or 811 or whatever.
yeah. 811 wasn't called, so.
So that falls on them.
Yeah, well, it fall on them anyway, but
Did you, you say you relocated the main? We're still within an easement, right?
Yeah.
We always check that.
yeah,
We just took it out from under the parking lot.
just moved it a little bit, yeah. And then the crews also replaced 400 feet of 2-inch plastic main west of Huntingburg, on the old Caspatoka line. It's west of town by the sawmill. That's the old Caspatoka line where it went through the cornfield, under it, or through the ditch, up a hill. That was put in the year 2000. It used to be an old farmer's, when we took it over. They used a lot of water fittings and whatever they had back then. Now URC required Huntingburg, when they took it over, to replace it all with gas line plastic. Back in 2000, that's when everything was put in like with trenchers and backhoes. So over time, the trench kind of got washed out, and there was always crops in the field and the ditch. And finally, with spring rains we had this year, it exposed several feet of the line that was trenched in, and it exposed some of the main that was in the ditch. So when we kept an eye on it. Then when the crops were out, we got a hold of USDI. They come over, bored in 400 feet right beside it. And then we had to keep the line hot because it was during the cold spell, because it's a radial feed, it's one-way feed, so we couldn't just shut it off and tie the new one in. So we had to do a few extra steps to keep it online, splice in the new one. They got that done a couple days ago, so that's all done now. So that's basically what they've been working on. Any questions in the gas?
Nope.
Good. Electric side, they finished up the last service at Chestnut Gardens. Now we're completely finished on the electric side. Then they worked on installing light foundations and lights at Hunter's Crossing 4. This plan was to set 5 lights there. We only had 4 in stock. We got a light standard ordered, but won't be here until March. So the actual cul-de-sac right by the overpass is where the 5th light's going to go. So if anybody would say something that's awful dark in that one end, it will probably be dark till March. But there is a light ordered for that. So we got that all done. And they did finish up all the Christmas decorations first of the month. Then we've been working on a new service at the Raider Athletic Complex. They're going to be wanting electric in there. I don't know if you've been out there and looked at it, but they got it all wrapped in. They got all the metal on, the roof on. So once they get it all enclosed, they're going to want some electric. So we ended up setting a pole, and we had to trench, dig in 2 4-inch conduits all the way to the building. Now we're waiting on them to pour the concrete pad, which we're going to do I think next week. Once that's done, we'll set the transformer, pull the wires in, terminate it, and hopefully get them back up and going. And like maybe get approval to get a load of 40-foot wooden poles. There was a transformer salesman in the other day, and he kind of started talking about with the national broadband project going on throughout the country. They're putting a really strain on these wood places that harvesting for poles. The lead times are really getting pushed out there pretty far. If we'd order poles, it probably wouldn't be in until February or March. We're in decent shape right now, but it might not be a bad idea to get an order in for early next year. So I don't know
Probably be cheaper right now.
Pardon?
Chances are it's going to be cheaper now than down the road. So you're looking for 40 of them. Is that right?
40-foot poles.
40 foot. How many poles are you looking for?
It's usually a semi-load. There's probably about 25, 27 on there.
You buy the whole load, that way you get the freight and everything.
Yeah, he said there was one small utility that only wanted 8 poles. So when he made the order out, he still had to pay the freight,
Truckload.
which pushed it over $1,000 a pole. Because you're still going to pay the same freight if you order a semi-load or just 10 poles.
They don't. Their shelf life is long, real long.
And he said the problem is it's not the labor to harvest the poles. It's actual. They're putting a really strain on the actual poles, the trees, because everybody's ordering poles nationwide. And some of the investor-owned, he said some of the investor-owned utilities are actually ordering poles from overseas because they can't get quick turnaround for some of these places in the United States. And you can imagine how expensive that would be, ordering poles from overseas.
Oh yeah. You just need approval to We need to give them
Get
approval.
approval to get quotes.
Okay, yeah.
Is there a motion made?
Motion made.
Motion made by Steve,
I'll second it.
second by Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call?
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bound.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
In the last meeting, I had a quote for a 1-year service agreement for our SCADA system with the option of 3 years at a 5% discount, but I didn't actually have that quote in at that time, just a 1 year. So it's decided to wait for the next meeting, which is today. I got the quote back a couple days after that. It did come in the same price as the year 1 with the 5% off, which actually pushed the price down to $5,201.66 a year for the 3 years. And you're gonna need it every year, so I think it'd be wise to go with the 3-year
John, what's the?
service agreement.
What's the page 3? It says the total for 3 years is 22,000.
That is the silver support plan, which other we're just going with the bronze.
Okay.
We're a smaller utilities, because I talked with the SCADA people, and they said the bronze would be plenty for us, but the silver's, like, you got 20 substations and a lot bigger service. So they said the bronze would be sufficient
So
for
you're
us.
asking for a motion to approve the 3-year plan, 3-year bronze?
3-year plan for $15,605.
Motion?
Motion made.
Motion made by Jeff,
Second.
second by Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call?
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bound.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Any questions on the electric?
Yeah, how many, are you finishing up on Hunter's Crossing? There's as many left you gotta do, you know?
Hunter's Crossing,
The subdivision?
3, 4.
The whole area?
There's 2 lots left on 3, and then all of 4.
Oh, okay.
And now I think there's 1 lot in that, the very first section where the model home was, and they had little parking there.
Yeah.
I think that lot is up for sale now.
Okay.
But there's, like I say, there's 1 lot in 1, there's 2 lots in 3, and then all of 4.
I gotcha.
You know how many lots are in 4?
27 maybe?
Yeah, I think
28?
this, all total, you should have about 25 to 30 lots left, I think, in that whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the administrative building for Southridge, I think we got a notice that they're in the process of moving to their new administrative building, so I think toward the 1st of December, I think we received an order to turn utilities off to Maple Park,
Okay.
so that's moving along well.
Okay.
Good deal.
That'll be another discussion for a future meeting, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, anything else from John?
All right,
sir.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bucket truck?
Is that?
Are you still looking for numbers for a bucket truck, or?
We still haven't got the order in, or the
Quote?
specs
Yeah.
from one of the companies. Said it may take a couple months.
Really?
And the salesman that was actually the salesman that was in, transformer salesman that was in, he kind of mentioned bucket trucks and service trucks. He said one company ordered a truck that come in $75,000 more than what they were quoted,
Oh my gosh.
and
How many months?
they basically told him if they don't want it, they just make a phone call and somebody else will buy it.
Okay, sure.
So, he said it's a big question mark on what the final price will be.
All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
Gentlemen,
Oh, Gary.
We'll start with distribution. We had a service line leak at Southridge High School. They've got a 6-inch service line that services their potable water. Plus, they have fire hydrants on that as well. That's why it's so big. Just a 360 crack. I couldn't give you a reason why. It's old, other than that. But we did have another water main break on Sunset Drive. We've got some transite water main that runs through there. It's very hard to locate. None of our locating can do it, so we go back to the old days with the witching sticks. And we ourselves mismarked that, and a bore crew caught that. So luckily, I think by the time we were all said and done, maybe 45 minutes went by the time we got it repaired. So guys moved quick on it and got it taken care of. Chestnut OFS, I believe it's Plant 5. They have done some water conservation of their own. They wanted to do away with the water service, so just like we've been doing in our practice, anytime somebody does away with one, we dig it up so it doesn't become a larger problem later when somebody catches it with an excavator. Running down the end of the year, being that it's getting colder, we took some time. The water plant, I was told, hasn't been cleaned since 2003, since it was installed. We had a nice north black mold on the building, so we took the time to pressure wash the water treatment plant along with the shop and some of the mold off the concrete at the shop. We also winterized our trucks, equipment, and our distribution system, things out there that need to have heat turned on. And we had some downed trees that were found around the lake trail that were rotted and fell over and hanging in the air. We wanted to make sure we got them out and do that's open to the public for a safety matter. And then moving into the filter plant, we back when we redid the filter plant, the filter media that was brought in was just rough numbers. We'll say we were supposed to have a 1.0 to a 2.0 filter media on our carbon, which is the top layer of the filter media that takes out odor and taste, is all that does. Whenever we received our media, the people installing it that we purchased it from, they didn't catch it, but it was installed sizing of, we'll say, a 0.5 to a 2. So there was finer grains in there. With that being said, when they set our backwash rates, it washed out some of that filter media. They stood good on it. They brought the media in. They've added the correct amount of media to the filters. They've given us an extended 5-year warranty on those filters, where previously it was just a year warranty. So we've got an extra 5 years. With that, they're going to also come out quarterly to watch our filter media as part of the agreement, just to be able to top those filters off. So kind of came out in our favor for that.
So a problem turned into a positive.
It did. It really did. We worked out a good solution that worked out for everybody, us and them. So we got that taken care of. All 4 filters back online. We did have to do some bacteria samples with that, and they all passed. So we are running again with all 8 filters. We had 2 3-inch clay valves. Clay valve, it's a valve that works off of pressure. All of our chemical pumps and everything run off a certain water pressure, and if they don't receive that water pressure, they will fault out. We have to go reset the machines. Come to find out, we had these 2 3-inch clay valves, hadn't been replaced since 2003. They've got a 7-year life expectancy on them. So we replaced those 2 3-inch clay valves and took care of our problem with that. We had a pump in our raw water well, in our wet well, and we had some piping that had broke. A float had got loose and sucked itself inside of a pump. We had to get down there and pull that pump apart. Luckily, the pump wasn't damaged, and we just had to replace a float. And then just winterizing the filtration plant as far as pumps and some of our pipe galleys and stuff outside that we had to insulate. Other than that, our metering system, we've kind of, with the winter months, we've kind of came to a halt on installing those. We try not to open the meter lids when it's below freezing, so just create problems there. Other than that, that's all I have as far as my monthly report.
Questions for Jerry?
Very good.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Nice job.
Thanks, Derek. Bill, do you have anything?
I have one thing. In the employee personnel handbook, it provides for which superintendents and department heads can have vehicles, take-home vehicles, and it does not include the fire department currently because in the past, the fire chief had not had a vehicle and wasn't full-time. Now we have a full-time fire chief. And I think the policy probably ought to be amended to include the fire chief as an individual who can take his vehicle home. We want the fire chief to be ready to respond to calls right from home. And the Board of Public Works and Safety approved it and recommended it to the council as well. That changed in the manual. So it would just be, in the past, we just amended those by motion on the minutes.
And this is a vehicle we're not buying, it's our vehicle he's already using, it's one we already had, it's the truck that we had for the fire department anyway, so.
We're just changing the policy.
Add, to add the fire chief as an individual who can have a take-home vehicle. Right now, we have, I think all the department heads and the policemen can take them home.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Motion made.
Made by Steve.
I'll second.
Second by Tip. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
That's all.
Thank you.
Tom, you're up.
I just wanted to tell you that you have a cash report there that really is just for your, and then it's just up to you to do the salary
ordinance.
elected official salary ordinance. The next item, business.
Obviously, this is something that obviously you all have the discretionary means to do whatever you want to do. From my standpoint, from the mayor's standpoint, I know we talked about this my first year I was the mayor. We talked about the fact that, well, I don't really care about getting anything one way or the other, but, obviously there's a procedure we need to stay followed through as far as that type of thing. But as far as percentage-wise is concerned, minimal percentage is fine with me, but that's up to the council members.
I think it can, is it all right if I found it?
Yeah. Go for it.
It is of our opinion that the salary of the mayor and the salary of the clerk treasurer would, an increase would follow that we gave to the city employees. That's the only two separate here, right? And then the council and that was, we did a 7.5% increase for that.
That's correct.
And then the members of the Common Council Utility Board, we feel that we would be more than satisfied with a 3.5% raise, which is less than half of what we're giving the city, the daily city employees that work day in, day out. This is just a board position, and we do want to keep it. We do want to keep with the times, but we feel that would be more than adequate to do that. That was
With the 3.5% for the council, that's only $7.80 a month additional is what I got figured up at. I think I'm satisfied with it. I don't use this position as a position that's a survive on, of course, and it's not. But so it's a way easier for other purposes other to serve the public. So if you guys would agree to 3.5 also, and Glenn, and we want to make sure you're okay with it too.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve the council has a 3.5% increase, and the mayor and the clerk treasurer as the 7.5 to match the current rate increase that we gave them.
I'll second
I'll second the motion.
Seconded. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call.
Dubon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
So do you want to introduce that ordinance tonight, the ordinance 2241?
We have to make a motion to introduce.
Make a motion to approve the same night.
Well, let's introduce it.
We gotta introduce it
Yeah.
first. Is this, what number is this?
41.
41?
This would be for 2022 41.
So is there a motion to introduce?
Motion introduced.
Motion made by Steve to introduce.
Second.
Second by Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call vote?
Devon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
If suspend rules.
5 ayes, no nays.
Next would be a motion to suspend rules to go ahead and do it this evening. It's up to you guys.
With unanimous, I can't say it, unanimous consent, I am, making a motion to suspend the rules.
Motion made by Steve,
Second.
second by Jose, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call?
Devon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Next would be to adopt. I hear a motion to adopt the ordinance 2022-41.
Motion to adopt.
Motion made by Glenn,
I'll second it.
second by Jeff, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call?
Devon.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Bounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
McFerrin.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays.
Anybody else have anything? I have one other thing. We all know we're working on the alley behind the old school cafe. We're trying to get that all completed and done. They've been pouring concrete and things there. We found out at the end of last week that if we're trying to get trucks and things to be able to turn into the back alley, they would like to have a wider entrance, wider radius for them to be able to make that turn. We've been in contact with the owner of the Chase Studio, the old Chase Studio. He's willing to work with us on that as far as some type of a purchase of enough property to make that wider. It's like a 10 by 40 foot piece of property that we would need to make the radius. I actually have a meeting with him tomorrow to see what he has in mind. I know he wanted to do some trading off or do some paving for him versus that, which we know we can't do because obviously we can't do private property stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know, and I think Phil put a resolution together that allows us to negotiate with him because it's gonna be way less than $25,000. So maybe to give me permission to do a negotiation with him tomorrow when I talk to him, so we don't keep putting this off as far as the concrete work. Obviously, if it's not feasible, then we wouldn't do it. But it's up to you guys as far as whether you wanna give me that situation to do
So
that.
we have to get it appraised? Is that what,
No, if
That
it's
would
under,
appraise it.
if it's under $25,000.
No.
And it's a sliver.
It's 10 foot by 40 foot is what it is. as far as the
And
total
he's
property.
basically, we're gonna purchase that sliver of land to make the adjustment so
make
we
the
can
adjustments. Right.
widen the entrance to make that accommodatable for the
bigger
truck
trucks.
traffic, so to do
Exactly.
deliveries.
Exactly.
And that's what we wanna service our downtown
Well,
merchants.
that's why we're doing what we're doing, and things of this kind. I mean, obviously trucks could probably do that by jockeying back and forth.
Yeah, you don't
Is
wanna
it
do
safe? No, probably not.
Will we have to adjust Geiger Street too for the heavier weights, or is it set up for it already?
That's like, it's already truck drive on there.
Yeah, it's a
anyway.
truck route, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Truck
Will,
routes.
will this remove any parking from Geiger Street? There won't be any.
We shouldn't. If we make it wider, otherwise, if we didn't, they'd have to take off the parking on the west side of Geiger for the truck to be able to.
To make the swing.
Make the swing.
I think they are removing, anyway, the plans were to remove one parking spot on north of the alley.
Between.
Well, that was already done.
That was already, yeah, that's
I
already.
think that was
that's
been
more
done
public
already.
works,
So that would
yeah.
take it out more likely?
Yeah, in order to make the entrance, the radius sufficient to get in, for even vehicles to get in and out.
Right, yeah.
So we're just asking for permission to negotiate with him in good faith, and it's gonna be less than 25
Right.
regardless.
And the mayor would have to bring it back before, to you all.
Sure, absolutely.
Motion made.
I'll
Okay,
second.
all right. Can we do
Think about the roll call on it?
No, to actually complete it, once you bring it
Well,
back.
okay.
Yeah.
So there's no action needed.
There's
No
action
real
needed.
action, it's just consent to proceed and bring back the
Okay.
proposal.
Okay.
All right, I have nothing else. Anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Tim,
I'll second it.
Second. Glenn, you were a little slow on that one.
Yeah, well.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call.
Don.
Aye.
Kissling.
Aye.
Rounds.
Aye.
Ware.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
5 ayes.
The internet delay got you, Glenn.
And in closing, I just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Same to you.